Once hailed as the golden boy of Discovery Channel's Gold Rush, Parker Schnabel wasn't just a miner, he was a phenomenon. The kid who once turned frozen Earth into a multi-million-dollar fortune is now at the center of a controversy so staggering it's flipped his world upside down. This isn't about missed targets or broken machines anymore. This is about everything crashing down. The image of Parker climbing into his excavator with fire in his eyes has now been replaced by courtrooms, whispered accusations, and a sentence that no one saw coming: life behind bars. That's not just a fall from grace. That's a plunge into something darker, something tragic. But how did it all unravel so fast? The very same Parker who had once risked his college fund to chase gold across unforgiving terrain, who brought in over $13 million worth of gold before most of his peers had finished their internships, has now lost everything. His mining empire, once worth tens of millions, is paralyzed, frozen. Dominion Creek, his most prized claim, is now under intense legal scrutiny. No more appeals, no more chances. Just a haunting silence where ambition used to roar. For someone who turned mud into television magic, earning $24 million in just one season, the downfall is as epic as his rise. And now, the man who turned a dream into a dynasty is waking up in a nightmare. At 24, he wasn't just rich. He was a symbol of grit and resolve. By the time season 15 rolled around, with gold prices soaring, Parker should have been sitting comfortably at the peak of his career. Instead, he was sprinting headfirst into the biggest storm of his life. What started as a gamble to hit an impossible target became the decision that would haunt him forever. He aimed for 10,000 ounces. That's over $26 million in gold. It wasn't just a goal. It was an obsession. And to reach it, he bought into something far riskier than he realized. He dropped $2.5 million on two legendary gold claims: Gold Run and Sulphur Creek. Historic, lucrative, but loaded with complications. These plots had already seen a century of mining, yielding over $1.5 billion. But their depths held more than just gold. Beneath that rich soil were decades of buried secrets, unstable terrain, unknown environmental liabilities, and ghosts of industrial past. Still, Parker charged forward, blind to the warning signs, betting everything on the belief that he could beat the odds once again. Moving Bob, his massive wash plant, 25 miles across harsh terrain, wasn't just difficult. It was madness. 10 hours was all his team had to get it done. The logistics were insane. Machinery broke, crews pushed their limits. But they did it. And it seemed like the gamble was paying off. Bob roared to life, processing dirt at a breakneck pace. In just 4 days, it churned out nearly 290 ounces, worth over $766,000. Roxanne added another 276 ounces. Parker's crew had crossed 6,000 ounces faster than anyone expected. The thrill of victory pulsed through the air. For a moment it felt like Parker had pulled off the impossible. But that moment didn't last. As they dug deeper into Dominion Creek and Bridge Cut, hidden problems began to rise to the surface. Big Red, Parker's legendary wash plant, finally gave out after 12 seasons of service. A snapped tension bar brought the entire operation to a halt. Over 34,000 ounces had passed through Big Red. But now, it sat silent. All that remained were Bob and Roxanne, and no room left for mistakes. Every hour became a high-stakes gamble. What the cameras didn't show was the quiet storm brewing in the background. While Parker was focused on ounces, regulators were watching something else entirely. His rush to secure new land and get dirt moving fast meant he made deals without stopping for environmental assessments. Permits were skipped. Fuel drums hidden under old soil resurfaced. Streams classified as protected were disturbed. And by the time whispers turned into subpoenas, it was too late. Then came the tipping point: federal charges. The kind that don't just fine you, they bury you. Allegations of illegal dredging, tampering with protected waterways, and mishandling waste. And every charge pointed back to that $2.5 million land purchase. Prosecutors uncovered 68 documented violations, $3.1 million in unauthorized alterations, and more than 8,000 gallons of missing hydraulic fluid contaminating soil near equipment zones. This wasn't just a legal hiccup. It was a mountain of damning evidence. Parker's legal team scrambled, claiming miscommunication, paperwork errors, and subcontractor negligence. But then came the email, a message from early in the season where Parker told his crew to press forward, no matter what. No delays, no excuses. No interference from inspectors. The courtroom fell silent. That email cracked the case wide open. And just when the tension couldn't get any thicker, a former crew member came forward. He hadn't just walked off the job, he had walked away with knowledge. Knowledge that Parker had been warned over and over again about the risks. That he knew permits were incomplete. That he decided to forge ahead anyway. The testimony didn't just hurt. It pierced the defense's final line of protection. This wasn't about mistakes anymore. It was about decisions, hard, fast, and reckless decisions made under pressure. The drive for 10,000 ounces blinded him. The weight of legacy pushed him into a corner. And now, Parker Schnabel, once the youngest mining legend in reality television, faces a reality he never could have imagined. Behind bars, no gold, no glory, just questions. How far would you go for greatness? And what happens when you go one step too far? Charges mounted against Parker like an avalanche. Each new count feeling like a sledgehammer to the image he'd carefully built over the years. Environmental damage, reckless excavation, tampered inspection records. None of it seemed like random missteps. Prosecutors didn't flinch when they described his actions as deliberate, a repeated pattern that ignored every line drawn by the law. When obstruction of justice got added to the list, the tone shifted from concern to full-blown condemnation. It wasn't just legal trouble. It was an implosion of reputation. The courtroom's decision hit harder than expected, declaring Parker's operations among the worst environmental infractions in recent memory. Yet, even as the judgment echoed through the mining world, something crucial was missing. No prison sentence, no press conference, no dramatic exit. Just silence. The kind that creeps in when something bigger is happening off stage. And just like that, Parker vanished. Speculation filled the void like smoke after a blast. Whispers of backroom restitution deals floated through industry circles, while some claimed he was under federal protection. No one really knew, but the quiet itself became louder than any headline. It was as if the golden boy of Gold Rush had been wiped from the slate. This wasn't just any reality TV star. We're talking about Parker Schnabel, the teenager who turned digging dirt into a multi-million-dollar empire. By 24, he had struck over $13 million in gold, launched 8 spin-offs, including the widely watched Parker's Trail, and in season 14 alone, pocketed a staggering $24 million. Now, not even a whisper. What made the fall even more surreal was how un-Hollywood Parker had always been. No flashy mansions, no red carpets, no rows of exotic cars. At the height of his fame, he was still crashing on a buddy's couch in LA. For him, wealth wasn't something to flaunt. It was something to reinvest into life. Instead of watches and champagne, Parker bought experiences. Hunting trips with his dad, spontaneous nights in Vegas, World Series games with friends. Those were the treasures he valued most. Behind the scenes, Parker's choices were never about status. They were about loyalty, and those deep roots ran generations back. His great-grandfather carved out a living in the brutal wilderness of Alaska, with Parker's grandmother by his side as early as 1937. His father, still waking before sunrise to work, passed down that same grit. Parker didn't grow up with shortcuts. He earned his place, surrounded by people who didn't complain, who didn't quit, who carried their pain like another tool in their belt. That legacy forged Parker's spirit. One summer, he spent every day beside his grandfather, eating dinner together, sharing stories, and learning what really mattered. That season of his life, he once said, meant more to him than any stack of gold bars. But now, everything they built feels like it's slipping away. Season 15 was hyped as Parker's grand return, a no-holds-barred attempt to crack 10,000 ounces and silence his critics. Instead, it spiraled. Legal drama dragged operations through the mud, while machines failed at the worst moments. The harder he worked, the more the season crumbled. Hooked viewers watched in disbelief as the very foundation of his empire cracked beneath his boots. Can Parker claw his way back from the edge? The question hangs like fog across the Yukon. With $16 million frozen in legal limbo, Parker's future is more uncertain than ever. Claims are in limbo, key crew members have scattered, and while some keep quiet, others are trying to keep the dream alive. Dominion Creek was Parker's boldest leap yet. Unlike past ventures where he leased land, here he went all in, buying the property outright for $15 million, paid up front, no refunds, no second chances. It was a gamble worthy of Vegas. But Dominion isn't just another patch of earth. It's a monster. The gold lies over 40 feet deep, buried beneath layers of frozen earth and red tape. Extracting it isn't just tough. It's a logistical nightmare. Millions. On paper, the payoff could be monumental. An estimated 80,000 ounces of gold valued at $160 million. If Parker can dig up 10,000 ounces annually for 6 straight years, he hits the target. But there's a catch, and it's ticking. Permits and water licenses expire in 6 years. If they're not renewed, all that gold could become untouchable. Time isn't on his side. So Parker did what he's always done when his back's against the wall. He doubled down. The crew began moving earth by the millions. Each mining cycle demanded 4 million cubic yards be shifted. And with natural expansion, the total volume ballooned closer to 30 million yards. That's not just exhausting. It's punishing. Machines break, people break, and even the best plans buckle under pressure. The weight doesn't fall on one man, it crushes everyone. Tyson Lee, Mitch Blaschke, every seasoned crew member, they're not just digging, they're chasing a miracle under impossible odds. Every minute counts, every setback bleeds money. Parker knows failure now carries a heavier cost than ever before. He can't afford another misstep, not with eyes on him, not with time running out, and certainly not with his entire legacy teetering between triumph and collapse. And yet, this is the same man who stormed into Gold Rush back in 2010 and made waves with nothing but ambition and grit. While others flaunted their paychecks, Parker buried his into strategy and survival. By 24, he was pulling in gold worth tens of millions. His journey spanned from the Klondike to Oregon to Guyana. He was tireless, strategic, unstoppable, until now. But Dominion changed something. Not just the scale of the risk, but the emotional toll. Parker confessed that his greatest fear wasn't financial ruin. It was losing the crew that stood by him from the start. Downsizing wasn't just a business move. It was betrayal. And he wouldn't do it. Instead, he expanded. He invested. He bet on his people. He inked a royalty agreement with Metallic Minerals, acquiring exclusive rights to a 12-kilometer stretch along Australia Creek. That deal alone came with a $1 million annual commitment and a cut of every ounce mined. Parker wasn't surviving. He was building an empire. Now, Little Flake Mining isn't just running Dominion. It's steering a multi-site, high-stakes future, where every error is magnified and every victory hard-earned. Crew morale, Parker says, is everything. Because out there in the cold, it's not just about gold. It's about grit, trust, and the belief that despite it all, they can still strike true. Rick Ness, who had shared countless seasons with Parker, was nearly absent this time. They only met face-to-face twice that summer, and their interactions were brief, distant. Even their one meaningful on-camera conversation, addressing Rick's personal struggles, felt more like two former allies exchanging updates than a reunion. With Tony Beets, the dynamic had changed just as drastically. Once fierce rivals clashing over every inch of land and every contract detail, they now existed in parallel, rarely intersecting. A few polite chats over coffee between scenes were the extent of it. Parker had grown beyond needing Tony's land or royalty agreements. He had his own stakes now, his own permits, and the autonomy he'd once fought for. But freedom came with isolation. With the mounting pressure of dominion and no close support to lean on, Parker pressed forward, head down, absorbed in the daily grind. He didn't back away from his other ventures either. Despite the stress, he locked in a high-profile deal with Metallic Minerals, stayed on top of his 400-hole drill program, and even earned the Yukon government's 2022 Robert E. Leckie Award for environmental efforts. A striking contrast considering that just 2 years later, his operations were under legal scrutiny. The duality of Parker's world was staggering. One day, he's lauded for stewardship. The next, he's buried in investigations. But off-camera, Parker never switched lanes. He remained grounded, almost nomadic in lifestyle. The guy earning millions still couch-hopped across states and countries, spending nights in Los Angeles one week, then drifting through Mexico or snowmobiling in the frozen wilds the next. But for a man at the center of one of Discovery Channel's top franchises, those numbers felt modest. There were no flashy watch collections, just a simple 2,000-square-foot timber frame home in Haines, Alaska, with a metal roof by a quiet lake. Rumors once swirled about him buying a $950,000 mansion, but Parker shut that down fast. He's the guy who'd rather sleep on a buddy's couch than maintain a sprawling estate. His first big gamble was using his entire college fund to invest in mining instead of a degree, and Dominion Creek became his riskiest move yet. He poured $17 million into a single operation with one goal: to extract gold buried beneath 40 feet of frozen ground. To reach it, he'd need to move 30 million cubic yards of dirt over 6 years, 5 million yards a year. Dominion isn't a mining project. It's a full-blown beast, and Parker? He's the one trying to break it. While gold prices soared, Parker didn't sit back. He ramped up efforts, expanded the team, brought in more machines, and even took a royalty-heavy deal with Metallic Minerals to mine Australia Creek. That deal alone meant upfront payments and a $1 million annual work commitment. He wasn't just digging. He was constructing a gold empire, one bucket at a time. And his reach extended far beyond the Yukon. From the humid jungles of Brazil to the glacial highs of Alaska, and from Papua New Guinea to Ghana, Parker's operations spanned the globe. While most crews hibernated through winter, he filmed episodes of Parker's trail across some of the world's harshest terrains, facing language barriers, illness, and brutal conditions. Parker's lifestyle choices have always reflected substance over flash. No flashy cars or gold-plated jets. Just the basics: a modest home, a few practical trucks, and a sharp focus on business. Yet his financial portfolio is far from simple. He's invested in mining properties worldwide, signed multiple deals with companies like Metallic Minerals, and reportedly holds insurance policies that protect his crew, machinery, and earnings across different countries. His spending habits reflect strategic reinvestment rather than excess, showing a key lesson. Long-term growth comes from betting smart, not spending big. So now we leave it to you. Do you believe Parker will rise again and redefine what legacy really means? Or has Dominion Creek claimed one more dreamer? Drop a 1 in the comments if you see him bouncing back, or a 0 if you think this run is over. Make sure to like and subscribe, because the next twist in this saga is already on its way.